So what should Republicans prioritize on the economic front now that they have a proposed Treasury Secretary? Let's ask New York Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, a member of the House Ways and Means Committee, where so many of those interesting tax plans come from, and Art Laffer, a man who used to design those interesting tax plans, former Reagan economist and co-author of The Trump Economic Miracle, a great read. Great to have you both here. We have the strategist on the right, and on the left, we have the person who puts those plans to good use. Let me go to you first, Art. What do you think we need to do first, and that Nicole Malliotakis and the other Republicans on your side could actually get through Congress?
Well, I don't know if they can get it through Congress. She would know much better than I do. But let me just say, just putting in the whole tax bill and making it permanent would be the perfect thing. If you can't make it permanent, at least extend it for another 10 years. That would be a great thing to do. There are lots of other tax issues that I'd love to see done, dropping that rate to 15%, which I don't think should be very difficult for them to do. And there are a couple of others that may be getting rid of the SALT deduction limitation. That might bring a few other people on board as well, New Yorkers and Californians especially. There are a few others, but getting that bill through is the first thing they should do.
And no tax for overtime. You've described that. A lot of people are talking about how much these tax cuts will cost, as though the last 2017 tax plan actually cost money when it actually increased revenues by 48%, which is crazy talk. But that's the talk of the town. That's the establishment talk, Art. Do you think that there are some Republicans that buy into that?
Well, no, I don't think anyone buys into it. But the question is, can you change the rules for the purposes of this bill going in, or making it by Senate has to do it, I forget what it's called, by resolution or whatever at the end. That's whether it's a 10-year plan. You can always pass it. But then you have to have it as a 10-year thing if it doesn't go, if it goes overboard and you don't have enough room in the budget. That you can do. And I would love to see them do that. I really would love to. There shouldn't be any tax on tips. It costs more to collect the darn money than it does than the money you get.
Yeah.
And also no tax on overtime. What a great thing. And no tax on American workers abroad that would pay the local taxes and need to compete. I mean, that's all really good stuff and should be done.
Well, Congresswoman, you don't believe that tax cuts need to be paid for as though they're an expense rather than increasing the revenue that comes in, do you?
Well, I think we got to look at what could be a pro-growth, pro-jobs policy, right? I mean, President Trump did such an amazing job putting in place a tax code that actually grew our economy, that created 7 million new jobs, that lifted people out of poverty, lifted wages for the middle class, and lowered unemployment for African Americans, for Hispanics, for women. And so we want to take those provisions, and yes, if not, we should make them permanent, if not at least 10 years, because what I've heard from the various stakeholders is, look, we want to invest, we want to expand, we want to grow jobs, but the only way we can do it is we have some certainty in the tax code so we know what we're dealing with. If we want manufacturers to come back home, like I desperately want them to do, particularly when it comes to our pharmaceutical and medical device, we need to make sure that there's a tax structure in place that gives them certainty so they can invest.
Yes.
So the 15% that was talked about, maybe we can't do it for everyone. Maybe we can do it for the manufacturers to start a facility. I think that's a national security issue. That is certainly an issue that people care about when it comes to reliability of our pharmaceuticals.
Let me just ask you, it gets under the skin of Art Laffer and Larry and me when we hear that the tax cuts of 2017 cost $2 trillion or whatever. It didn't cost a penny. We increased revenues by 48% in the first 5 years. And it wasn't inflation, by the way. That was way more than inflation. So are there still Republicans in the House who believe that you have to pay for these tax cuts as if there was a cost there?
Well, look, I think the data speaks for itself. And the only reason those revenues aren't higher is because COVID hit. And so we unfortunately had to deal with it. Who knows how successful the Trump tax agenda would have been in bringing revenue and creating jobs and really stimulating our economy if it were not for COVID right in the middle of it. What I would say is we have those success stories. We're compiling those success stories. We need people from the various industries to come forward and say what they've been able to do as a result result, whether it's buying equipment for the first time, whether it's hiring new workers, whether it's opening a manufacturing equipment, so we can then go fight for an extension of these codes. And as you mentioned, the personal tax code is obviously really critical as well. Families benefited significantly under President Trump. He doubled the standard deduction. He doubled the child tax credit. Sure, New Yorkers, we want to see some type of SALT relief, but we also have to show the American people and the New Yorkers, remind them that it's our governor and mayor that are taxing them to death, and that's why we need SALT relief. So I hope President Trump does deliver on that. And the seniors who are struggling on Social Security, to give them more tax relief, as the president said he wants to do, I think is critical.
Let me bring Art back in, because Art, one of the goals I know of President-elect Trump is to actually balance the budget. We did it under a Democrat once in my lifetime under Bill Clinton, but it took a lot of work. He didn't have the advantage that President Trump now has, which is a tax code that is pro-growth. So he comes in with, thank God, with that pro-growth tax cut. And if, by the way, we had kept spending at 2019 levels that we had right before the pandemic, we would have had more than a balanced budget. We would have had a surplus budget right now of about $500 billion above the baseline. So, I mean, we know what works. We know what can balance the budget. Could a balanced budget be done in 4 years?
Yeah, in the first place, it was done twice in my lifetime. John F. Kennedy and Bill Clinton did it. And listening to Nicole, that's music to my ears. You know, when you realize what competent people we have in the Republican Party and on the Ways and Means Committee, Nicole, forgive me for just lauding you, but your conversation was just terrific on that. What we need to do is get as much into that bill as we can and make sure it passes and make sure we go. If we can do it on all of the items, great, but we have to succeed on getting this bill passed, getting it into place. I would look to the Vivek Ramaswamy and the Elon Musk committee to really bring down the spending. I think they can do that, and I think they can do it beautifully. But we need to get this bill passed right away.
Congresswoman, how do you take the Doge boys' notes and suggestions about how to cut from the budget? How do you implement that into policy?
Look, I think you need to go line by line and see where money is being spent. I think there's a lot of money being spent on programs and things that people never even heard of. They don't even know it exists. They haven't been even reauthorized for many, many years. And so going line by line and figuring out where the exact waste is, why the Pentagon can't do a full accounting of it, how do they lose all these billions of dollars? It's not accounted for. How all these international organizations that we are members of that don't reap benefits, money that we're sending to countries that hate us. I think it's a matter of going line by line. It will take a lot of work, and I'm glad that we have dedicated people within the administration who want to do that and work with Congress, because many of us have been highlighting some of this wasteful spending. And believe me, it's going to come from places you've never even heard before.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. There's all kinds of ways to spend your money, as long as it's not their money. Art Laffer, it's wonderful to see you, my friend. Thank you so much. Congresswoman Malliotakis, great to see you as well. Absolutely.